Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Live DFS MLB live stream. I'm John Pemba, joined as always with James Grande. James, hope your connection's a little bit better today, so we can get you for the full live stream. But we had a pretty good show going there on Friday. Let's see if we can continue it today with Monday's slate.
Well, I thought we'd first pick up where we left off and start with Friday's outfield since we didn't get there. So if you want to just start there, be my guest.
Yeah, I think some of that information might be a little bit dated, but we will start with today's 10-game slate. There are a couple weather concerns in New York. There's some rain in the area. There's flash flood warnings throughout the night, but if you look over, me personally, I use the Weather Channel, Weather in Motion. You go to the website and it kind of shows you with the radar how it's going to move over the time lapses of the night, and that looks pretty clear to me. I think we'll be okay there. And then the other one is in Texas with the D-backs and Rangers. Another one where there's rain in the area, but it looks like it's going to clear out later, so I don't think we're going to get a delay there. D-backs in Texas, that game right there with the Rangers, probably going to be one of the chalkier games of the slate, given the fact that Bartolo Colon is on the mound in the hot, humid Texas weather. So I think those are the two main concerns. Anything else that we should know before we kind of go position by position here?
No, I know the Kansas City Blue Jays game, there was a possibility of a delay, and that is all. But possibility used very lightly.
Yep, no, for sure there. And some other things to note, like we said before, there's actually two low run total games on the slate. San Francisco and LA, that's Madison Bumgarner, Clayton Kershaw, just a 7-run total there for Vegas line. And then the Yankees and Mets, DeGrom versus Severino, something I'm sure you're very interested in watching as a Yankees fan. That game also has a 7-run total, which is pretty low there. And then Texas and the Diamondbacks, like we said, they're got a 10-run total Vegas line. So again, probably one of the chalkier games of tonight's slate, just based off, there. When I start my lineups, when I start reviewing the slate, Vegas is one place I go to, see where the lines are, see who's favored, and that's what we have today, things that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I do literally the exact same thing. We have, we talk about our approach all the time off air. I follow the same blueprint.
Yep. Have you started looking over the slate? Who are you looking at for tonight's top pitchers?
So I see, that you're not a big Kershaw guy tonight, but I am. That one strikeout outing is a complete outlier. I mean, we have seen Clayton Kershaw dominate as the best pitcher in baseball for a countless amount of years now. And like you mentioned, you prefaced it already by saying that they have a 7-run total in this game. He gets... he pitches at home, which is generally a nice pitcher's park. Obviously, it's not as nice as it could be if we were, playing this game in San Francisco.
Right.
But he's only $10,000 on DraftKings. And, I mean, like, I feel like we alluded to this last time. I think last time I was on a stream with Howard, and we talked about his 12.8K being low. Like, this is insane, 10K. And I guess it's because the strikeouts, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is what I mentioned the last slate when Rick Wolf was on with us earlier last week. I wasn't on him in his last time against Oakland because the strikeouts weren't there. He's got a career low K per 9 right now. Granted, he was up at 12.8K that night, a lot more expensive than he is tonight. But, I mean, he's not returning really that value that you're looking for at this price tag. In a game where you don't know if the Dodgers are really even going to get the win because Bumgarner could just as easily shut them out. So now you're relying on sort of like a vintage Kershaw performance here, with the strikeouts. And hopefully he gets the win to really get you that value at 10K. For me, I just think there's other options on the slate. Maybe Kershaw is more of a contrarian play in contests. But I think, with the way Zach Greinke is priced, with the way that Mike Fulton is priced. I like those guys better, and they're only a little bit cheaper than him. So I think that's where I would probably go.
I mean, I think you're on to something when you're talking about Fultonevich, because obviously, he gets the Marlins, and that's probably the prime spot, you want to attack in all of baseball. And he's been really good. The All-Star break did Mike Fultonevich really well because he was struggling. He limped into that All-Star game. So He's going to be really chalky. I mean, our projections have him at 38%, which is pretty insane. That's a really big number for a pitcher. But he's more. I just revert back to that price tag again. And he's excellently priced on FanDuel. Like we talked about it before we hopped on air. Like his price tag is ridiculous on FanDuel, but 10.5K on DraftKings compared to 10.K on Kershaw on on FanDuel, sorry, and then 10.5 to 10K on DraftKings. I don't know.
No, I mean I understand. Like you said, you're looking at him with the matchup against the Marlins. He's going to be one of the chalkier pitches. Maybe Kershaw is sort of that pivot, but then if I'm going to pivot really at that level, I'd really rather go Zach Greinke against the Rangers. Now I know that there's some weather concerns in this game, but I mean Greinke's been almost unhittable. You look at what Jacob deGrom has done, this season. Over his last 10 starts, Zach Greinke has a 1.64 ERA and a sub-1 WHIP while striking out nearly a batter per inning. I mean, now he's facing a Rangers lineup, which, they have a lot of power in there, but a ton of swing and miss potential. There's a really good matchup for the Diamondbacks. They're favored to win. Greinke could be the top scoring pitcher on the slate, and he's the cheapest of them all in terms of that top tier.
Yeah, and that's another really good call. My one, hesitation with Greinke is if you look at his numbers from his splits home and away. He's been really good in Arizona the last couple of years, and I'm not saying he's been terrible away from home this year. 1.12 WHIP is really solid, but he's allowed 13 home runs in 69 innings, and in comparison, he's allowed 7 home runs in 80 home innings. So I think, like you alluded to, Texas power, and guys like Ronald Guzman just had a 3 home run game not too long ago. Rougned Odor is hitting for a ton of power lately. That is a little scary for me, seeing how many home runs he's given up in so few innings on the road and in the Texas heat. So, that's my one hesitation and why I would limit myself to GPP exposure. But, yeah, I mean, I could definitely get behind Greinke because the strikeout upside is clearly there.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, for me, it's more so how well he has pitched rather of late. And I definitely understand, what you're saying in terms of home and away. During that 10-game stretch, though, his away ERA is 1.06. So
okay, well,
yeah,
yep.
he is just dominating everybody right now. So for me, he's my top price guy. My top play is on DraftKings for sure. On FanDuel, I like Fulte just because he's priced so cheaply over there. Let's get into, actually, what do you think about DeGrom and Severino's matchup tonight? We'll touch upon that, 2 top price guys. Obviously, Severino's had his troubles of late, but DeGrom, can't get a win. So are you going with either of those two?
I mean, yeah, you could play either of them, and they could literally get you 40 DK points at any given night, to be honest. The weather could depress their ownership as well. I feel like with 10 games on our slate, people may, deter from that matchup, and you could potentially get, I think Severino would have been the highest owned pitcher of the slate if it weren't for the weather. I think that's going to drop a little bit, but I think both are fine plays, and I really wouldn't be mad if you said you want to use either of them in any format. Obviously, DeGrom is, like you mentioned, he doesn't win. They only win for Zach Wheeler. I've come to realize, he's the only one they win for. He's won 6 in a row, and poor DeGrom. But I think both of them are elite options. Basically, whoever they face in any given, because the talent sometimes trumps.
The talent's there for sure.
Yeah.
I think, for me, it's just, are you scared about the way Severino's pitched? Even in his last start, he bounced back a little bit, but, 3 earned and 7 hits and 7 innings against the White Sox team that he probably should have dominated more than just barely squeaking out a quality start there. Sure, the 8 strikeouts were nice and whatnot, but, again, we're looking at even the starts even before that. Boston obviously got to him. The Royals tagged him for 6 runs. Tampa Bay tagged him for 6 runs. The Mets shouldn't score on him, but does his recent performances give you any pause?
No, but the early part of the season does, and what we saw last year does. it's a bigger, like this 4-game sample size is a lot smaller than what he's done for a year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at that more than I'm looking at this. Maybe he is tiring, but last year he threw a bunch of innings and he didn't tire. So I think he's just hitting a rut, and a lot of pitchers do, and I think he's going to come out of it fine. Whether it starts now or a couple starts down the line, he'll be fine. But, I mean, he gets a matchup versus the Mets, and we know the Mets, who have been better lately, aren't the most potent offense.
Right. All right, let's look at some value and mid-tier pitchers that we have on the slate. I think we'll start with the chalk play. I think Ronaldo Lopez versus the Tigers is going to be somebody that everybody is playing today on DraftKings as the SP2. He's priced at, $6,600, I think I saw it was. He's absolutely dominated the Tigers in 3 starts this year as well. He's gone, I think it was 5 earned runs in 20 innings against them this season. Yep. So, and again, not that I like Lopez at all. His sabermetric numbers are terrible. His FIP and XFIP and Sierra are all through the moon here. But there's a guy that's pitched really well against a bad team in Detroit. I think you're going to probably see a lot of people go to him. Yeah, 2.25 ERA in 3 starts against Detroit. Hasn't won, though. Has yet to get a win against them in 3 starts. But, what do you think about him tonight?
I mean, it's the logical SP2 in cash. Because the top price guys are going to cost you, and you need someone cheap. I think it's a trap. Like, I know looking back on it, like, I'm going to play him in cash games because, like I said, it's the logical play. 6.3K. He's pitched well lately, and he's dominated Detroit, and their offense stinks. But like it's Ronaldo Lopez, and like we mentioned, or as you mentioned, like his sabermetrics are horrible. So, but we saw it last year. Guys like Andrew Kashner, his sabermetrics were horrible, and somehow he skated through the year with like a sub-4 ERA. Yep. So, I mean, I think he is a good play. I really do. It just hurts to say it because he's he's just getting lucky. So.
No, I hear you. I mean, Detroit this year ranks 30th in runs scored against right-handed pitching, which is dead last in baseball. So again, they aren't doing any damage at the plate. 30th in batting average against right-handed pitching. And I'm going to assume that they're last in OPS. They are 651 OPS against right-handed pitching. So yeah, they're just terrible against righties. I think Lopez is going to be the chalk there. A guy that I looked at is somewhat interesting to me. He costs a little bit more expensive, but in that mid-tier range is Miles Mikolas over in St. Louis. He just goes out there and kind of throws, 6-7 innings, gives up 2 earned runs. Really, no matter who it is that he's facing, real tough test tonight against Washington in that lineup. But for a guy that's been able to hold a sub-3 ERA for the entire year, are you worried about him at all? Do you think he's just a good enough pitcher to keep teams at bay?
I find that interesting that you would like me, and I think Mikolas is a good play. It's just like going back to the Kershaw thing, Mikolas is less likely to strike out.
True. He's $2,000 cheaper though.
Which is obviously the price tag we want him, but it's just something I thought of. Yeah, he's fine, dude. I mean, he has 12 wins this year too, so he's favored at home. I mean, he's a fine play. He's a really good play. 2.01 ERA at home. He's a really good play here. I think his pivot though in the mid tier is someone who I don't think a lot of people are going to be on at all, and he actually hasn't been pitching well, and that's Andrew Heaney. But the one thing that's been really consistent with Heaney has been the strikeouts. I mean, even in games where he allowed 5 earned runs last game, he still was able to strike out 6 and get us 11 DK points, which doesn't really kill your lineup, Yeah. San Diego has bats in the middle of the lineup: Christian Villanueva, Franmil Reyes, Hunter Renfroe, and they hit lefties well.
Yeah.
But we're in San Diego, and they're very strikeout prone, regardless if they hit. They're so similar to Texas tonight. It's really a hit or miss spot, and I think with that kind of strikeout upside, I'm really leaning towards Heaney and GPPs only.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, the park upgrade, everything kind of points to Heaney as a really low owned dart.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue too much there. I'm personally stacking actually against Heaney tonight in some GPPs because I like, like we said, Reyes and Villanueva and Renfroe, all those guys are hitting righties really well. Will Myers, Manny Margot, also kind of up there hitting left-handed pitching really well. So yeah, I'm sort of stacking against Heaney, but also because it brings me to Clayton Richard, who is free on all sites today, and we've always known the thing about Richard is he loves pitching in San Diego. This year, he's at 3.76 home ERA compared to a 6.28 ERA on the road. And the Angels are terrible against left-handed pitching. Mike Trout's on the DL, so he's not going to play. I have to assume Ohtani's not going to play because there's no DH for him. I don't think he's going to play the outfield randomly or whatever. So that he's probably out of the lineup as well.
Yeah, he is out of the lineup.
Yeah. Right, and then the Angels, missing now their two best bats. Essentially, they already ranked 26th in runs, 25th in OPS, and they ranked 29th in batting average this season against left-handed pitching. Clayton Richard could be a really, really sneaky, total free play over on DraftKings tonight. $4,400. It was just a couple, I think last week or so, where Wei and Chen was pitching at home. And he was free, and they had the really good home road splits, and everybody who pitched him ended up getting, 19 fantasy points out of a guy who was $4,000, and that really boosted your lineups and allows you to pay all the way up, fit any bat you want because on DraftKings guys are expensive.
You can't go every 5 days without a Clayton Richard plug. I swear.
When he's at home, I'm always throwing lineups in there. It's just what it is.
He is a very solid play here. I love the fact that you mentioned Mike Trout. I know it's hard not to mention him when you're talking about the Angels, but just the fact that he's out, it just the quality of the Angels lineup take out Trout, and then if you get Justin Upton out, who's destroyed him, I mean, there's nobody that really scares you. David Fletcher hitting second. I think Richard, even if he stinks, 4.4K, you're not losing anything.
No, that's how I look at it. I think he should be in. If you're making, if you're entering those 3 max, 5 maxes, 20 maxes over on DK, Richard should be in a handful of those. I think, because you never know. All right, let's move on to catcher. Top price catcher on today's slate for me and for you as well is Yadi Molina against Tommy Milone. Malone was in the minor leagues for a reason. He had a good couple starts, but predictably, in his last outing, he got blown up. I'm expecting that to happen again today. I like the Cardinals and a stack against him. Anybody other than Molina at the top tier for you, or any other catchers you have your eye on tonight?
Kind of top tierish, top to middle tier is Yan Gomes. We're getting Homer Bailey, and Homer Bailey is someone who everyone and their mother and their mother's mother and their mother's mother's mother will stack against. Yeah. So, I think
we have to check in with Howard Bender first. Make sure if he's stacking against Homer Bailey, then we have to play Homer Bailey tonight.
That is a very, very good call. I forgot he can't get the Homer Bailey stacks right. So Howard, please reach out to us now on chat or Twitter or wherever you are and let us know. But if you're not stacking against him, Yan Gomes, I think Yan Gomes is pretty safe for all formats. He's not the greatest bat, but 11 home runs on the year, hits in 8 of his last 9 games. We're not looking for the moon here.
No, I agree with you. I like using Gomes. Obviously, he's much better against lefties, but again, Homer Bailey is a good spot to really use anybody against him. So I'm with you there. Another catcher I'm looking at is Omar Narvaez. I usually like to play those White Sox catchers. They're priced pretty low, $3,000 typically in the range that they are today. He's a guy hitting 292 over the last 10 games, over 1,000 OPS, pretty cheap, and he gets, he's facing somebody. Was it Artie Lewicki? Yeah, Artie Lewicki. Good luck to him today. He's 4.77 ERA, 0-2 with a 1.56 WHIP. So yeah, the White Sox offense, should be in a good spot against him tonight. And Narvaez, really cheap catching option. I kind of like him there.
Yeah, and he's hitting like kind of in the middle of the order, hitting sixth.
Yeah.
And I mean, 280 for the year. So like this recent stretch of 292 over his last 10 isn't just a recent stretch. It's kind of been like consistent. And he didn't even start the year with the team. I think he was in the minors. I think him and Kevin Smith, if I'm correct.
They had Wellington Castillo, right?
Right. Yeah. So like Narvaez is a really solid play, and you know what? You could probably use him in cash games too. I think I have one more guy for a GPP only. Mike Zunino homered yesterday, and I was all over him on the playbook. Last year we saw him versus lefties, 882 OPS, and that's kind of been a trend. I think in a GPP, Manaya isn't the same guy we saw from earlier in the year. So I think, we're looking for a home run, quite honestly, because Zunino, that's what he does. Yeah. It's all or nothing, but I think he could be a really interesting GPP, kind of a standalone, because I don't think the Mariners are the best stack tonight, but I would play Zunino as a one-off.
Yeah, I didn't really know where to go with that Mariners A's game in terms of lineups, because I think those two pitchers have both been like average against each other this year. They've both faced each other a handful of times. They both have, ERAs and, the mid threes against one another. So kind of hard for me to figure out which way to go there. But no, for sure, in GPPs, you want that home run upsides, and, certainly fits that bill. Let's move on to first base. Top first baseman tonight has to be Paul Goldschmidt against Bartolo Colon. I think the Diamondbacks going to be the top stack of tonight's slate as well. And, for this game, and on a night where, like, guys are priced up to $6,000, if you look at Jose Ramirez, as we'll get to a little bit later, but Paul Goldschmidt only being $4,700 feels like a discount on DraftKings. So I'm inserting him in all my lineups tonight. I think he's a must-play for me. Is there anybody else, maybe aside from Paul Goldschmidt, that you're interested in, or is Goldie just a lock and load for you?
Remember when he was done? Remember when people said he was done earlier this year?
Yeah,
that's good times. He's the best play by, like, I think a wide margin. I mean, he went deep twice yesterday. Bartolo Colon, the hot weather, yada yada yada. I think like the pivot would probably be Freddie Freeman. I know he broke his 14-game hit streak after his offer this afternoon, but I mean, who is this Marlins pitcher? Who's this guy on the mound?
I don't know. Yeah. We have to ask Craig Mish.
So like, I think Freeman is going to be a really solid play at all formats. I mean, he's just so consistent at the plate. Even if he doesn't give us a home run, we can get 2 doubles and 2 RBIs, and he crushes value. So I think Freeman would probably be the top pivot off Goldie, because Goldie is going to be the chalkiest of the chalk.
Yep, I agree with you there. If I'm going to kind of spend down just a little bit, Yonder Alonso's there against Homer Bailey. Again, I know Yonder hasn't done much over his last 10 games, just 7 hits and 40 at-bats. Did go yard twice, though, during that 10-game stretch. So the home run upside's there. I think stacking against Homer Bailey's going to be popular as well tonight, especially, people are a little bit scared off of the weather there in Texas. You can see, I think, Cleveland versus Bailey be popular, and therefore Yonder for me at 4,200 on DraftKings, and he's cheaper over on FanDuel. I think he's like 3,100. 3,100 over on FanDuel. So I think those two guys, at those 2 price points are good spots, more in the mid-tier play.
Yeah, he's going to keep hitting fourth with Edwin on the shelf too. So like, just the fact that Lindor, Brantley, Ramirez, if they don't all hit home runs in front of him, literally could always come up with the bases loaded or something.
Right.
Like 2 runners on. I mean, they're so good. So I think Alonso's in a fantastic spot as well.
Anybody sticking out to you other than the guys we've mentioned?
Yeah, I like Justin Smoke here in this in this mid tier. He was in a really, really good groove. I know he's 0 for his last 10, but just over his last 10 games, he's still hitting 324, and the power is way down from last year. I mean, we saw it, the power that we thought we were going to get when he was a top prospect last year, and that hasn't necessarily been the case this year. But he still has 4 extra base hits over his last 10 games. And against righties this year, Smoke 394 WOBA, and 14 of his 18 bombs have come off righty. So I think he could be a really, really good, solid mid-tier play. And again, who knows? Like, his ownership shouldn't be too high, with most of it going to Paul Goldschmidt. I think Alonso is going to be a really popular option too, because everyone loves the Indians tonight, and they're one of the highest implied. They have one of the highest implied team totals. So I think Smoke can go a little overlooked. I think I really like him here.
Yeah, that works for me too. And I think maybe one other person we can look at in that game as well as the opposite of Smoke is Lucas Duda, priced all the way down to 3,500. Gets a Reed Foley there, making his major league debut. Had some good numbers in the minor leagues. Can't take that away from him, but the major league is a completely different animal. Duda has a nice little hit streak for himself going right now. I think it's like 5 or 6 games. We know the power that he possesses. So I think Duda at 3,500, nice little cheap value there at first base. Moving on to second base, anybody at the top stand out to you?
I'm after reading a bunch of Ben Shear's work today, I'm kind of on the same plane of thinking with him. I don't necessarily love the top tier second base. It's kind of a spend down middle tier guy, but I think if we were to spend up, I think it has to be Ozzie Albies, right? I mean, Gonzalez has been horrible in his few starts against left-handers. I mean, versus everyone, but versus lefties specifically. So I think Albies, has the power upside. Gonzalez against lefties, 333 average and a 404 WOBA against. So, I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. I know Albies is better from the right side of the plate generally, but he has smacked 14 home runs and has a 338 WOBA himself against righties. So I think Albies is my top dog if I'm going to spend up, but I don't find myself doing that very often on this slate.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same position with you. I think I would probably go down to Merrifield if I was going to go on that. If I was going to pay up, I just think him against the guy making his major league debut. Merrifield's a good hitter. I think that could probably work. Odor's actually hit better against lefties than righties this year, which is kind of surprising. So definitely not going to play him against Greinke. So Albies, in an Atlanta stack probably makes sense. But if we're not spending up, that means we're probably looking towards the middle tier. Ketel Marte, second base, eligible there on DraftKings, and I believe also on FanDuel, right? Or is he shortstop over on FanDuel? Yep, second base on both sites. So you're going to go with him against Bartolo Colon. Got to think he's the chalk, right?
Yeah, him and Descalso both. I mean, who knows if they'll be chalky, because they might just share the ownership. But I think if you combine their ownerships at second on DraftKings, it'll be if they were just one big player, it would probably be the highest of the slate.
Yeah, I won't argue with that. Down a little bit more, I like Jed Jerko there against Tommy Malone. He's hitting left-handed pitching really well, hitting in the middle of that lineup. Power hasn't been as what we've seen over the past couple of years, but we definitely know the power potential exists. And then Jason Kipnis is just below him over on DraftKings as well. He's got 5 hits over his last 8 at-bats. Again, teeing off against Homer Bailey as a lefty. I think he's another second base option that we should take a look at. Anybody more down the slate? Any cheaper options for you?
Shot in the dark, because I kind of like the Athletics tonight. Chad Pinder, 377 WOBA against left-handed pitching. We've actually seen him in the past. You talked to me about this once. I was really on them. He gets lifted in the end of games because he's not the best defender. Mm-hmm. So that could be something worth noting. But I do like Pinder. At least in his early at-bats, GPP stack exclusively.
Yeah. The other thing with him was when Matt Joyce was healthy, they had Pinder in the outfield, and basically as soon as the lefty came out of the game is when they pitch hit for Pinder and put Joyce in there, and because Joyce hits, the righty's better than he does, needs a better outfielder. But Joyce is hurt, so maybe Pinder will be able to kind of stay out there and play the rest of the game. At third base, Jose Ramirez is just absurdly priced on DraftKings, $6,000 tonight, but I mean, the matchup warrants it. Homer Bailey. You can fit him in there if you spend down at your SP2 tonight on DraftKings.
Clayton Richard.
Yeah, Clayton Richard, right. He fits in there. I think I have him in the optimal lineups over on Fantasy Alarm that are up right now as well. So, yeah, we have him, and we have Eddie Escobar with the Diamondbacks against Bartolo Colon as the two top-priced guys.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy, and I think, again, it's going to be Escobar is going to be I think the Diamondbacks are just the chalk across the board, basically at every position. I mean, Escobar is destroying the ball. He's been great. I mean, he was great in Minnesota, but he's been great in Arizona, hitting over 300 since arriving. So yeah, I think Escobar is going to be chalkier than Ramirez just because that price tag, like you mentioned, is priced like he's hitting at Coors Field.
Yep. In the mid tier, you have we talked about Matt Chapman. 1,000 OPS over his last 10 games. You're a big fan of him if you're going to go, against the Athletics tonight, as you sort of talked about. And then on FanDuel, we have Jed Jerko, who's third base eligible over there. I mentioned him again at second base because on DraftKings he has multiple position eligibility, fits in both spots, and they both hit lefties really well. We are 8 minutes from Russell Lock, so again, make sure you have kind of everything getting in order here. Make sure the weather and whatnot's in price because, these are time you start making those final tinkers to your lineup. James, as we move on to shortstop, who are you looking at?
I mean, at the top, we're going to go with Francisco Lindor. I mean, these Indians they're so priced, like they're priced out of this world. But, I mean, both are, in the midst of an MVP caliber season. Like, they're both literally MVP candidates. Obviously, you don't want to hear that, but they are.
Sure.
So I think Lindor is the top option if you have the money. It's the same thing as Ramirez. If you can spend it, if you can spend up, these guys are worth the price of admission. And then you could also play Escobar. You could slide Escobar over at shortstop on DraftKings too, which I think is an excellent play. Mid-tier, Aledmys Diaz. These Blue Jays, I'm kind of like really feeling a like mini stack of the Jays here. Brad Keller he's a ground baller. He's fine. But Diaz over his career has been excellent against righties. 836 career OPS against right-handed pitching. And we saw that right from his rookie year when he burst onto the scene. And now he's destroying baseballs, hitting almost 400 over his last 10 games with 4 home runs. So I think Aledmys Diaz and the Jays can be really sneaky. They're priced very fairly. I love Aledmys in the mid tier.
Yeah, he's going to be in the Stock Watch article tomorrow. I kind of have that planned out, and I talked about him last night on the MLB podcast with Nate Miller, which was released this afternoon on Fantasy Alarm as well. I agree with you there. Guy that's surging, and 2 years ago, really good season as a rookie for St. Louis. Value play, a guy you and I love playing against left-handed pitching, is Kiki Hernandez, and he's got that strange success against Madison Bumgarner, 15 for 35 with 4 home runs. He's got double eligibility over on DraftKings. So you can fit him in the outfield. You can fit him in at shortstop as well. And then over on FanDuel is a good value there. What do you think it is about Kiki and Mad Bum that he just sees them so well?
I mean, I think he just sees lefties well. I understand he has it's pretty crazy to look at his numbers against one of the premier arms in the game and be like, oh, what is that? Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe he likes his hair. Maybe he likes Mad Bum's hair. But now he doesn't have it. So, I mean, maybe that's going to factor into his 0 for 4 tonight, or maybe that's just me making something up on the spot.
No, I agree with you there. All right, let's move on to outfield real quickly. Who are your top guys?
So I think it's getting repetitive to name the same teams, but they're going to be the chalk of the night. David Peralta is playing out of his mind. This is the best baseball we've probably ever seen him play. And he's been arguably one of the best players in baseball right now. Actually, I don't think it's arguably. I think it's just a fact. He's been on a tear. Michael Brantley up top as well. The Indians are crazily priced, and you're not going to be able to fit all of them. But if you do spend down at pitcher with a Mikolas and a Clayton Richard, you'll be able to most likely fit 2. Brantley and Ramirez, Brantley and Lindor Ramirez. I think, they're all, and then Alonso, who you mentioned, is very fairly priced in the mid tier. So like that Indian stack is going to be very chalky, and Brantley's going to be very heavily owned, but rightfully so. And Ronald Acuna Jr. is just hitting a home run every time he steps up to the plate. 5 in his last 6 games, including 3 straight games. Last night or earlier today, 2 for 3, 3 runs scored, a home run, a double, 2 walks, a stolen base, 36 DraftKings points. So I mean, those 3 stand out. I think they're all going to be popular. I think Acuna might get the highest ownership because his price tag is $900 and $500 cheaper.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue it there. If you look at the mid-tier, I actually think that Franmil Reyes is going to be very popular. It's only 3,400 on DraftKings. Again, for a site that priced everybody up, this is a guy that's hitting over 300 with a bunch of home runs over a recent stretch. His price tag never really got that boost. I think you have to take a look at him on DraftKings. And then I think Cameron Maybin's sort of an interesting play. For a while, he was hitting lefties pretty well. I think I saw him hitting second in tonight's lineup. Yep, second tonight against Manea. Only 3,200 on DraftKings, so I think he's sort of a nice value to mid-tier play over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Harrison Bader is someone I'm looking to play. It's $2,400. Again, gets Tommy Malone. Hitting 7th in that lineup, but this is a guy that has power and home run upside. I really like him a lot tonight as well as sort of a value mid-tier play.
Yeah, I think everyone you just named is in a really nice spot. Bader's been – I love the dual threat ability of Bader and DFS because, I wish he was hitting a little higher in the lineup, and I think that could come to fruition soon. But, I think I'm happy he's not hitting 8th. I'll tell you that for sure.
That's true. Marcell Ozuna is another guy that's only $3,900 on DraftKings. When he really gets going, we know his upside. He should probably be, $800 more expensive when he's at his peak, and he's only $3,400 on FanDuel, $3,900 on DraftKings. I think he's one of the top value plays over on this slate today, getting the face. Tommy Malone, like we mentioned, left-handed pitcher there. James, any final thoughts on tonight's slate?
No, I think it's a good idea to spend up at least one of your pitcher spots. I know we mentioned how there are a lot of good hitters, but guys like Clayton Kershaw at 10.5, Mike Foltynewicz at 10, Kershaw at 10, Foltynewicz at 10.5, and then if you like Severino and DeGrom and GPPs, I think it's a really, really safe place to start with all of them in your builds. And but other than that, I'm just excited for another wonderful slate of baseball.
Yep, no, I agree with you there. So that does wrap up this DFS MLB live stream. We'll be in subscriber chat up to a roster lock, which is in 5 minutes. Hit us up with any final questions. This is John Mpemba. You can find me on Twitter at jmpemba777. Grandy, where can they find you?
At _real_grande.
All right. Good luck, everybody, tonight.
Later, guys.